Hello, everyone, and happy Saturn Day. It is lovely to see all of you. Today is March 8th, 2025, and I'm going to get into the astrology of the day, as well as prepare you guys for the upcoming eclipses. So I hope that you find a lot of these remedies helpful and that you can get something from, from this session. Now, I mentioned that it was Saturn Day, but as Jyotish practitioners, every other Saturday, we also celebrate what's called Rahu on Saturday. Now, who is Rahu? Rahu and Ketu are the north and the south node, and they are the reason behind eclipses. And that's what's coming up. So that's why I wanted today's show to be a little bit more about Rahu and Ketu. I talked about Shani or Saturn last Saturday. So we're going to talk about Rahu Ketu this Saturday. So Rahu's the north node. What does the north node represent? He is our superego. He is the thing that is making us come back and repay our karma each birth. Okay, that's his job. And if you look at where the north node is situated in your chart, it can show you where you might be overdoing things a little bit or not seeing through an illusion that's there. And we all have this in our chart. We have a south node and a north node, and that's what we're trying to balance here in this birth. It shows that there was an imbalance in our past life that we're learning to work through. They're kind of they're giving us lessons. And this eclipse is it's going to show us a lot of things about the collective that we need to change. So I'm going to go into that a little bit as well. Okay, so a good mantra for Rahu is Om Rahuve Namaha, Om Rahuve Namaha, Om Rahuve Namaha. And you can say that via a mala 108 times, especially if you feel especially anxious or disillusioned, or you're feeling the coming eclipses a little more than the average person. I know my husband is, because this is directly on his nodes and it's his Saturn opposition. So who are we doing remedies in this house? So another thing that you can do is the Adi Devata, the people who help us with our mind, are the ancestors. These are the family units in which, the soul units in which we're born into. And one of the best things that you can do to remedy that is it's a ceremony called Shraddha. And I went into that in a previous video, but what it does is it helps the year-long trek that our ancestors have to make before entering the land of the Pitris, which are the ancestors. It makes it a little easier, and it also heals a lot of the family wounds that they carry with them and that we carry from birth to birth. So we recommend doing that a year after the person has died, or during the ceremonies of the year, which this year will be between September 7th and the 21st. So that's one way to honor the Pitris, and this is a very, very simple mantra you can do for them. Om Pitridevaya Namaha. Om Pitridevaya Namaha. Om Pitridevaya Namaha. And even if you have very difficult ancestors, they're not perfect, what that does is it promotes healing in those areas so that they can learn those lessons and come back as better, regardless of how good or bad they were in this birth or in previous births. Additionally, the Pratyadi Devata is goddess Durga, and she is a beautiful goddess. And you can see she's got a lot of weapons there. She's woohoo, all right? The reason she has a lot of weapons in her arsenal is that she is the main defeater of the ego. If you look at the battle between Durga and Mahishasura, what happened was Mahishasura was a buffalo demon, and he became so powerful with the austerities he was doing that he gained the powers of the gods. Okay, so then the gods got together and said, okay, this guy is literally, because he's a demon, making everybody worship him, including us, and his ego is out of control. What do we do? So then Indra, he's the god, the king of the gods, he waged a war against him and lost. And they were like, oh my gosh, if Indra can't beat this guy, what do we do? So all of the gods took all of their cities, their Shaktis, their beautiful spiritual powers, and they put it into one being, and that formed goddess Durga. So she is basically all of the powers of all of the gods in one being. And of course, it's a woman. So that's why she's carrying so many weapons. And she defeated Mahishasura and saved the three worlds. And so what does this parable mean? It means that when we let our superego get out of control, when we let our fear, our anxiety, which fear of death is the main reason why most of us carry fear. It's a very primal fear that we all carry because this plane is called Mritya Loka, the place where all things die. So it's very natural to feel this. Unfortunately, there are people that can become disillusioned in thinking they can beat death with their money, with their practices, with their austerities, with various things. You can never defeat death. That's just the nature of this plane. No one can. So, and I explained this through biblical terms and everything else in previous videos that you're welcome to look at. But this disillusion is what's causing a lot of issues in the collective right now. So a really great mantra that you can do for Goddess Durga today to just call on her to not only help you with your own inner demons, your inner buffalo, but also to deal with the buffaloes of others. Okay. Om Dom Durgaye Namaha. Om Dom Durgaye Namaha. Om Dom Durgaye Namaha. And as you do that mantra, just invite Goddess Durga to come in and slay whatever's in your way. Okay? And then another really good mantra for her is Om Sarva Mangal Mangalye Shive Sarvata Sarike Sharanye Tramnike Durge Narayane Namostute. And just allow that to wash over you and feel the blessings of the goddess in you. Okay, so that's just one remedy that you can do when you're feeling the Rahu Ketu energy to prepare you for the upcoming eclipses. I will talk a little bit about what's going on in the sky. This is a little big today. The moon is in Ardra Nakshatra. Okay, Ardra Nakshatra is in Sidereal Gemini. Okay, and it's a star of sorrow. Okay, Ardras have to kind of go through a lot of pains in their birth in order to break apart some of the more material ways of thinking and being and to step more into spirit. Ardras are also highly, highly intellectual. These are guys that are up in their heads. My husband's brother is an Ardra, and he can play almost any musical instrument. He's got this beautiful engineering mind like the rest of the family, and he is, in my opinion, a genius, just like all of Jonathan and all of his brothers. So they're all engineers. Like the other brother works for NASA. Jonathan was in the computer age. I mean, these guys are like, wow, intellectual. But what they can struggle with is tapping into their emotional state, kind of like Bill Gates. And so what's important for Ardra to learn in this birth is the power of tears, the power of really feeling their emotions. And when they cry, that literally peels away a layer of the intellectuality that's keeping them from divinity and opens their hearts up to those more intuitive, sensitive, empathic ways of being and living. These are guys with high IQs that are working on the EQ. Okay, so that's why it's the power to make efforts, but it's also it's a sorrow, and that's why you see the teardrop there. Okay, so it does bring a lot of unexpected events and big things, emotional things in their lives that cause them to take a step back and go, wait a minute, maybe I should think about this a little differently. So they have a lot of purpose, aim, they're very curious, they can be critical, but they're very courageous. And they're really big on transformation in this life, which can actually make them feel like an outcast, especially at their birth, because Ardra, especially if you have your moon here, they can feel like a foreigner in their own family. Because that's the start of Rahu Mahadasha. Today is Rahu's energy. What do I say when I mean Mahadasha? In Vedic astrology, we determine your life events based on which planet is in charge, and they all have a number of years in which they get control. And then I looked at Nakshatra and I looked at the Vargas and everything else to determine what that phase is going to look like in your soul's play, what you came here to learn, your strengths, your weaknesses, etc. Rahu indicates obsessions, anxieties, things like that. So for a baby or a child to deal with all of this energy right at birth is very, very difficult. So Ardras start their life off kind of feeling like an outsider, feeling like, what's going on? Why do I feel so weird? Okay. So I'm going to give you guys some remedies for this, especially because the moon is going to be conjunct Mars as well. And what that can cause is some emotional upheavals, maybe a little anger, thinking about past things and triggers as the eclipses approach as well. So the one I gave you about Rahu is very helpful. Durga is helpful. And I'm going to give you Triambakam at the end. Triambakam is one of the most powerful. It's the Mrityunjaya mantra, and it's one of the most powerful mantras that you can do. Okay? All right. So that's just a little bit about the astrology, but I really want to focus on the upcoming eclipses so that you guys can prepare for them. Now, we're going through uncertain times, and this is when injustice and confusion can cloud our hearts, and that's what eclipses cause. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita, that's a sacred text in Vedanta, it calls us to step into love through selfless action. That's called karma yoga. Through bhakti, that's devotion. And through jnana, that's gaining knowledge, reading spiritual texts, learning how to be a better person. Okay, and Krishna reminded Arjuna in the Gita, this is verse 247, chapter 247, that you are entitled to action, but not to the fruits of the action. So you're here to do a lot of actions, but if you expect all of these rewards, then you're not really learning the lesson as you go through it, okay? Because true love is selfless. It's a complete surrender of the ego, which is very difficult when we have a strong Rahu. And it's offering without expectation. So the superego is Rahu's illusion. He's the one that causes eclipses along with Ketu, and it keeps us trapped in fear, attachment, and that hunger for control, especially when things are changing and changing fast. And that's what eclipses cause. So when Rahu and Ketu activate, and this will be on the 14th and the 29th of this month, they invite you to either fall into illusion, which is Rahu, or rise to surrender. All right, those are the two paths that we can take with this eclipse energy. And the Bible also echoes this wisdom in 1 Corinthians 13. And it's love is patient, love is kind. I'm sure a lot of you grew up with that verse, but love does not seek its own way. True love is not about possession. It's not about dominance, and it's especially not about fear. It's about relinquishing pride and stepping into service. And that's why I believe the message of Christ is so important, why it can be lost with that disillusionment, with a lot of the evil things that are seeking to control people rather than serve them. Okay, so the Quran also talks about this, and it's in the Surah it's the Surah al-Baqarah, I believe. And that is in chapter 286. And it's a parable about a cow and an uncle that passes away, and he actually, identifies the killer after they go to Moses, bless, praise his name. And basically it states that Allah does not burden the soul beyond what it can bear. So the challenge that these eclipses are going to bring, and I've been talking about these the last few shows, especially the one that activated on April 8th, which is going to cause Project 2025. They're not meant to break you, they're meant to refine you. Okay, so I also looked into the Torah, and the Torah really goes into Leviticus, and that's in 19:18, and it's love your neighbor as yourself. And that emphasizes that in love, there is no separation. So even if someone doesn't deserve our love, obviously set those beautiful boundaries, but if they do not deserve our love, or if they can feel our love, that's not on them, okay? It's our job as light workers to love without expectation, and to also love ourselves and keep ourselves safe as well, because our souls are just as important, okay? In Buddhism, the Tripitaka, that's the teachings of Buddha. It's actually 3 books. And it urges metta, and that's loving kindness. And that's the practice of unconditional goodwill for all humanity, especially in adversity. So these are the things that can help us get through some of these eclipses, some of these issues. So let's talk about what these eclipses span. They span Uttara Phalguni, that's my husband's moon, and Ketu conjunction with Saturn, and Purva Bhadra, which is his Rahu. So I'm very familiar with this axis because I've lived with it for a long time with my husband. And so this is challenging you to balance detachment with responsibility. And this is one of the most responsible guys I know, but he'll talk to you maybe a little bit more about how that's been a challenge for him on this axis. So Uttara Phalguni That's all about selfless service. Purva Bhadra, that's the raw transformative energy of Rahu. And Rahu's very, very strong in Aquarius. So this tension reflects a lot of the collective unrest that we're seeing right now, because there's a lot of power struggles that are causing injustice and disillusionment in the collective. That's why I got that Seven of Cups with the injustice card, justice reversed. So Rahu, know that Rahu distorts the truth. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that that comes after this eclipse. And that's going to lead people to chase illusions of power. This is the place where all things die. They're literally chasing dead things that are going to fall apart and they don't get to bring with them. That's the illusion that they're going through. They think they can take it with them. They think that they can live forever. It's disillusionment. It's not real. Okay. But Ketu, it withdraws. And it makes the collective feel hopeless, like there's nothing I can do. I guess I'll just lie down. I guess I'll just hide under the covers. I guess I'll just not do anything. Okay. So the remedy is profound to balance these two energies, this usurp of power, which I want it all and I want it now, and I want to beat death, and I want to take all my material assets and be king of all the worlds. That's the Rahu. And then there's the Ketu that's going, who cares about the world? I'm just gonna hide and just try not to feel things and be kind of apathetic about this. And yeah, they took everything. We're all gonna die anyway. Okay, those are the two things. That's Rahu Ketu. Seems a little unbalanced, right? So here's the remedy. It's simple. Love. Okay. It really is love. And I'll go into that a little more, because it removes Rahu's delusion and it brings clarity where there is deception. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys how to navigate this energy, all right? And the card that I got for this energy was Death. Okay, so what is the Death card telling us to do? The Death card is all about transformation. It's all about endings, relinquishing, awareness, renewal, surrender. It's get ready for major changes, guys, because the old kings are gone and the new kings are coming in. Okay, and they're coming in with a lot of father issues. That's what all these guys have in common. You look into their past, you look into Musk, you look into Bezos, you look into Trump, they all have issues with the father. And Bezos, that's not his father. He's adopted too. His father was an alcoholic that went around on unicycles and didn't support the family, so his mother remarried Bezos, who adopted him, and he didn't even know it was his father until he was like 10 or 11 years old. Musk's father struggles with mental illness to the point of incest. And Trump's father, well, we learned all about him from Mary Trump. So these guys have had a lot of issues with dad. And that's why it's so important to honor our ancestors, no matter who they are, so that we can create healing in our families as light workers. Okay. So this card is not to be taken literally as light workers. I know you know that. The Death card is not all about physical death. It signifies natural transitions that are occurring and the adjustments that we need to make when faced with the conclusion of something. The United States is going through what's called this Yama return. That's Pluto return. That's the god of death. So even though it's going to be difficult to let go of things, events, relationships, things like that, know that these new changes and these interests, they are only going to bring growth into your life. Okay. You're basically tilling up all of the old, they're showing me a garden that's overgrown and starting to die. And you're tilling up all the soil to create fertilizer for the spring shoots. Okay. So release your grip on the past and use it to literally fuel your future with that fertilizer. Shift your focus and your energy toward the present and the future, and try not to dwell too much in the past as you go through these transitions. All right. That's how you harness the power of this really potent energy. So this can be, this in the United States is the conclusion of our job markets and our real estate markets, because it's the 10th and the 4th house. So this can bring a lot of apprehension, because this is what makes us feel safe and secure. But know that the universal energy that's surrounding you is strongly supporting change and just profound personal transformation in your life, and it will do you good. Okay. So the secret toward navigating this energy is embracing a new reality. And it doesn't mean discarding all of your old habits and belief systems, because they serve their purpose. You learn from them. But once you realize that fulfillment can be found in this new life and this new way of thinking and being, you'll be less inclined to cling to that status quo that you were stuck in, and more curious about what lies ahead. Okay, so I think that's the main energy of the death card, and that's what it's telling us. Okay. All right. Oh, thank you, Lauren. That's why I have my math. Because I always appreciate your teaching skills. Thank you. I have my master's in teaching, so I love it. It's something that I enjoy doing. I love that you're here to listen. It makes me happy that you're getting something out of this. I get a lot from you guys too. I mean, that it goes both ways. That's how this works. Okay. So I'm going to talk about things that you can do to navigate the eclipse energy, and I hope you find these helpful. Now, you can chant the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra. All right, you can play this video back. I might make a short if you guys want that again so that you have that. This invokes divine protection and clarity. It's also not good to look at eclipses. Okay, the way that my guru, Camilla Sutton, described it is if you look at the eclipse, it's like getting a download of a demon. It's like getting a bad virus. Okay. If you don't look at the eclipse and you do your spiritual practices, it's like getting a download from the devas. That's that wonderful, angelic, pure light energy. So any spiritual practice or mantra that you do during the eclipse will be 100 to 1,000 fold, depending on how much bhava or emotion you put into it. Okay. So this is the most powerful mantra you can do during the eclipse. And this is what my husband and I do during eclipses as well. We did this during the before COVID hit. In 2019, we had that stellium eclipse. We did these mantras. We have yet to get COVID. We did this during the eclipse before Bharani hit, and I lost some of my health care. I have yet to get sick in the areas I normally get sick in. Okay, so they're very powerful, especially if you say them from your heart. Now, they're not cure-alls, but what they can do is they can clear some of the karma out of the way and make your transition into this new reality easier. Okay, so here is the mantra. And you're welcome to join me if you want, Jonathan. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam Urva Rukamiva Bandhanam Mrityo Ruchiyamamritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam Urva Rukamiva Bandhanam Mrityo Ruchiyamamritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam Purva Rukamiva Bandhanam Mrityo Ruchiyamamritat. Om Shanti 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 Om Peace Peace Peace. So we hope that you get something from that mantra and know that it's an extremely powerful energy that you could bring in to help you through these times. Okay, so that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do is you can offer seva or selfless service to those in need, because that is what Uttara Phalguni demands. All right, so that even a small act of kindness on this day can be 100 or 1,000 fold, because what it does is it releases Rahu's grip, that north node energy. Imagine what acts of service would do to someone who is a narcissist. They start to break out of that. I mean, it's exponential the things that can happen. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can practice meditation. And what that is it sends love to all of those who are perpetuating the injustice to neutralize the anger into dissolution. Now, we are all connected here. And when we say these prayers, when we put these thoughts out there, it affects them, whether you see it immediately or not. So doing these things can be very powerful. Now, if you're looking to wear a gemstone on this day, yellow sapphire can give you a gemstone for Jupiter's wisdom, or amethyst. That's one of my favorites. That can bring you some spiritual clarity and tone down the anxiety a little bit. That can also help you anchor your higher consciousness. All right, so those are two stones that you can hold while meditating or wear on that day. Make sure it touches the skin. You can perform acts of forgiveness on this day for yourself and for others and release the chains of karmic illusion. One of the best things you can do is get a burning bowl, very safe burning bowl, or a mantle, your fireplace, and write down all of the names of those who hurt you or caused you issues. And then burn it and give it to the devas. Ask Agni to say swaha, swaha, swaha as you do this, and you can imagine that message getting to the gods and the devas, the higher realms, and releasing. Okay. Another thing you can do is fast or eat light on eclipse days. Stay away from grains, meats, alcohol, things like that. That helps you avoid Rahu's toxicity. And you can recite Goddess Durga, who I mentioned at the beginning of the show, mantras for resilience. And I'll give you her mantra again. Om Sarva Mangal Mangalye Shive Sarva Sadike Sharanye Tramike Durge Narayane Namostute. And you can learn that mantra, or you can do this simple one. Om Dom Durgaye Namaha. And you can do that 108 times via a mala, especially during the eclipse, as well as the listening to the Mrityunjaya mantra as well. So, but the main thing I think that we're learning is for all of these things, love is the remedy. Okay, so it dissolves Rahu's illusion. That's that north node that's out of control. And it brings clarity where deception thrives. Deception thrives in the dark. So this is like turning on the lights. And so if you choose love and you move beyond the fear and into that beautiful divine truth that connects us all, you will no longer be eclipsed by these shadows. And the uncertainty will fade in this radiant light of unity. And your meditation can improve too, because you'll feel a lot more connected and less anxious as you go through this. So, I really hope that that was helpful. I know that was kind of a lot to go over. But I kind of wanted to end the show with Jonathan, because he actually has his nodal axis exactly where the eclipses are taking place. He has been through this in 1994 and in 2008. He can share his experiences and what he's learned to get through this energy, because it directly affected him personally. Now, this is affecting the collective, but he's been through it personally. So he has very graciously volunteered to give you some of his wisdom. Love him so much. And the things that he's doing to kind of help him through this energy.
Yes, normally I'm not sitting in this chair. I'm sitting in the back of the room waiting while I drink my coffee. But Michelle wanted me to sort of share some of my early experiences. It's kind of odd because when I was a kid, I was probably the only person that I knew in the entire circle of friends that I had in several different locations that I lived in when I was a kid, who had, now this isn't to say it wasn't going on, because if you had someone in the family that was an alcoholic, they didn't announce that they were an alcoholic. That was, no, you don't talk about that. You know? So the backstory is my mother and father had 3 kids. I'm the third of 3. There's about a 14-year gap. Is it 12-year gap between my oldest brother and me, which is very unusual in a Southern family in the 50s and 60s. You had 3 kids, like 7, 8, and 9. You know? So anyway, the story is that my father was the only son of essentially a bootlegger in the South. The bootlegger, my grandfather, made a huge amount of money because this is when alcohol was illegal. It was a dry state. You could not go into a store and buy alcohol. So he made it illegally and he sold it illegally. He made a lot of money. And he started buying real estate with that. So he was probably in today's measure a multimillionaire. And my father was the heir to this. He would have inherited the whole town, basically the whole empire, except that he was a chronic alcoholic, and it was since he was probably before he was a teenager. Now, how in the world would a young guy become an alcoholic? Where the heck did he get? Oh, wait a minute, his father was a bootlegger. I found out much later in my life that he used to go along with my grandfather to do delivery runs. And also he became the rent collector for grandfather. The grandfather was pretty canny about money. He took the money from the alcohol sales and started buying real estate. And then, houses and apartment buildings. So pretty soon, he was making more money from the real estate than he was from the alcohol, but he was still making it as far as I know. So anyway, I don't know if my grandfather was an alcoholic, but it's pretty likely. I know that my father was, and I'm the youngest child. My middle brother is and was an alcoholic. still struggles with it. He's quit for a while and then he comes back to it. My own crisis was not with alcohol because that was burned into me as a child. Don't drink. Look what happened to this person. Look what happened to that person in your own family. So I went into college unprepared and with no money. My mother divorced my father when I was about 12, I think it was. We moved to a different city because in those days, if you're divorced, it was a stigma. You failed as a mother. You couldn't hold on to your man. All these crazy Southern things. So my mother couldn't stand the shame in the small town that we were living in. So we moved to a larger town where she was completely unknown, and therefore the shame didn't follow her, except in her head. So she became a nurse. She was actually very successful in providing for the three of us. My oldest brother helped a lot because he was old enough to get work. But so I didn't drink. She didn't drink. Nobody in the family drank. But we are all chronic worriers. We've all seen stress. We've all gone through stuff, and the way that you handle it, you either deal with it or you bury it. And I'm a barrier, a collector and a barrier. So I managed to just sort of stumble through things. I was a paper boy. I, made about $50 a month on my paper route, which was astonishing money for the time. And I tried saving up for going to college because that was the channel out of the problem in those days. You go to college, you learn something, and you go to work and you make a living. Long story short, someone in the family stole the college money just before I went to college, and I went anyway. They said, well, there are scholarships and loans and things that you can make use of. Again, long story short, I go to college, I get a room and a roommate that I knew, and they screwed up the loan. I was approved for a loan. It was going to pay for everything and give me a small amount of money to buy clothes and stuff. The college received the loan, didn't notify me. The date expired for me to claim it, and I went in about 2 weeks after they'd returned it and said, what happened to the loan? I've been waiting. I keep getting notices that I'm overdue on my tuition. And they said, oh, let's look it up. They looked it up and they said, oh, we returned it to the funding agency. And I'm like, why did you return my loan to the funding agency? You were supposed to credit it to me. And they went, oh, it happens. So at that point, I'm 300 miles from home, no money, no room to live in because they came around and ushered me out of the dorm that I was living in. These are very helpful times. So now I'm on the street. I don't have anybody to live with. And I found it, I sort of went into what would now be called hippies, a hippie commune. I found some people that said, hey man, you can come hang with us. Marijuana. That's what happened at the times, folks. So it wasn't alcohol, but it was marijuana. And long story short, I responded very well to marijuana. It was very relaxing. It helped take my mind off things. It was also a federal crime at the time to possess or sell marijuana. So I possessed it and I sold it and made enough money to get back to my home in Little Rock. This trauma, the trauma of being the son of an alcoholic and having a drug problem on my own, characterized that part of my life. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. If you can't tell, I'm a little nervous and a worrier. And it got to the point where I was doing so much in this hospital job that I had. I was doing so much pot, I had trouble getting up in the mornings. And one of my coworkers came to me and just basically said, are you all right? And I realized I was getting noticed. And I thought, okay, I got to do something. I'm going the way of my father. I'm using a different handle, but I'm going the way of my father. So I started looking around. Okay, if I can't use substances, what can I do? And church was not for me. I'd been going to church, and it's a nice social thing, and there is some spiritual component to it, but it never really clicked for me. So I looked into various groups. I even went to, I don't know if it was called that at the time, but Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't drinking alcohol, but I clearly was abusing substances. So I kind of been an alternative thinker. You know, it's not necessarily a modern technique that has to work. I thought, you know, we thousands of years of civilization, somebody must have figured out some way to deal with this. And I started looking around, and I came across, believe it or not, astrology. But astrology at the time was not that, it's not what it is today. And it was intriguing, but it wasn't a curative for me. And then I came across somebody, I think it might have even been on the bus. I was reading a book, and somebody said, "Hey, what's that about?" And I said, "Oh, it's this, that, and the other." And they said, "Hey, have you tried yoga?" And I thought, "No, I never even heard of it. And what's that?" And they said, "Well, it's a philosophy for this, that, and the other." And something somewhere deep inside me went click. And I thought, I got to look that up. And I'll try to keep this short. I'm already going longer than I thought. I started taking yoga classes. There was a center, several, in Chicago at the time. This is the early 70s, so this was really early for the yoga movement. I started taking classes, and it immediately clicked for me. Immediately. And I wasn't an athletic person. I didn't do aerobics or anything. I was just a young guy, and I was kind of healthy. But I started doing yoga, and the second or third class, one of the instructors came over and said, "Where did you take classes before?" And I said, "Here." And he said, "No, you must have taken classes before. Where did you take them?" And I said, "No, I haven't had classes before." And they said, "Oh, maybe you're just remembering." "Oh, okay, well, whatever, dude." You know, again, I'm just taking exercise classes. I haven't gotten into yoga philosophy or anything. Again, I'll accelerate the story. About 2 years later, I joined the yoga organization that was teaching the classes. I took some training, 2 levels of training, went back to Chicago and became the director of the yoga center that I had started taking yoga at. And I could see that it completely broke the chain of suffering and addiction. It got between those two things. It helped me understand the suffering, and it prevented me from resorting to the addiction. Now, that worked for me, and it's worked for a lot of other people. And it worked, you know, if you're listening to this and you're hearing this, it might work for you too. It might be that, and again, yoga is not just twisting around into various physical positions. That helps the body. It stretches it out. It helps your energy, called prana. It helps the energy to reach your physical and your mental and your emotional and your spiritual state. But if you just stretch a bit, it's amazing how much better you feel and the benefit that you can get. So I was able to break that cycle between the cause of the pain and the result of the pain. My brother did not do that. My surviving other brother didn't get into yoga. He got into alcohol. And as far as I know, he's still in it. He was a functioning alcoholic. He was a music teacher in middle school and high schools. And he missed a few days of work, but for the most part, he would get up, go to work. He was a pretty good band teacher, and then come home and immediately start drinking. His wife at the time, still married, said several times, you can't do this. You've got to stop. You know, you come home, I don't see you. You're out in the shop working on something, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, or you're chopping down trees in the yard. You know, you've got to stop. You know, we have no relationship. It's just you doing your own thing, and I'm in the house. So he went to therapy, and it worked for a while, and he fell off, and he'd go back to therapy, and he fell off. You have to want to get out of it more than you want to stay in it. So the benefit of stopping it has to be greater for you than a benefit that you get from the illusory benefit that you get from staying in your addiction. So if nothing else, I'm proof that you can learn how to deal with the pain, and everybody's got pain. That's the nature of this place, is to deal with the pain in your psychic body, your physical body, your emotional body, and your spiritual body, to deal with that pain. That's why, in my opinion, one of the reasons, probably infinite number of reasons, that we find ourselves here is to learn how to not be here. And when you learn how to not be here, you're suddenly in a different place that just looks like here. And you can find your way out of it. So there is help to be had. You can do it. I'm not the only person I've ever talked to that was in so much pain that they turned to something. Sometimes it's not even a physical substance. They turn to a philosophy. They turn to, and that's what I did. I turned to yoga. I just went from alcohol to yoga, or from pot to yoga. So it's possible to break the cycle. It's possible to get the help that you need, but I'm going to echo every addiction help group that I ever heard. There's a famous phrase in the yoga philosophy that I followed, and that is, you will change when you tire of suffering. And there's a point that you hit with your suffering where you just can't take it anymore. It's a very decisive point, and you either get better or you get worse. Better is better. So that's me.
Now, he mentioned that this happened at 18. That was his nodal return. It happened to him again in his late 30s, well, mid-late 30s, that's 36. So that would be when he started getting cancer, and he had to fight cancer. And then it's happening again now. So it happened in 2008 as well, or 94, yeah, 94, and then 2008, and then now it's happening, yeah. So he's going through his nodal return again, and now he is dealing with some health issues that are forcing him to just completely re-navigate his life. And would you say get back into yoga? Yeah, heavily get back into yoga and his spiritual practice. So he has what's called a Guru Chandala yoga on his Rahu, and that's the guru, that's Jupiter. And so what Jupiter did was he gave him a Swami, and he gave him the yogic practice to help him deal with his demon. That's what Rahu is. So as we deal with this eclipse energy, this Rahu, this demon that is in all of our charts, and look at the house that Rahu's in. For Jonathan, it was in the 9th house of the father. For me, it's in the 1st house of the self, and I struggle with that in my own ways. I struggle with being here sometimes. And for you, it might be something different. So look at the house that Rahu is in. Look at the sign in the Nakshatra, and also look at what was going on in your life when you were 18 years old, when you were 36 years old, when you were 48 years old, when you were 54 years old, when you were 66 years old, and when you were going into 77, so your late 70s, mid to late 70s, okay? So pay attention to those times in your life, and that can kind of show you what you're here to balance out, what pain management you're trying to overcome. Because those are the nodes that keep us coming back here and taking those lessons over and over again. And if you learn to conquer them, you can rise to those higher levels of being. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful, guys. And know that I am sending you, and Jonathan, we're both sending you so much love as you work these eclipses. And I hope that some of the things that we gave you can kind of help you navigate this energy. So Om Shanti, Om Peace, and Om Love to you all. Take care, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.
Sacred knowledge from the stars. Vedic truth heals ancient scars. Mantras clear the karmic way, bringing light to guide each day. Let the planets show their signs as the cards and stars combine. Ancient wisdom flows.